Looks like we're live. All right. So, for those watching, the reason that I'm trying to work out if how I'm live is because I'm working out over OBS. Uh, Give me 1 second, just so I can change how it's monitoring, and then we'll get into the stream. Audio. I'm learning that OBS is a funky piece of software, but we'll get there. Here we go. Monitor off. All right, perfect. So if we go here, there. All right, so in today's stream, as the heading says, or as the title says, we are going to be going through how you can best structure your gym sessions for the best results. So essentially, the reason that structure is important is because it gives us the format that we go through training, and the better that we structure our session, the better that we're able to actually go through each exercise throughout it. I think that one really important part of programming or having something that works for you is having the correct exercises, right? The exercises are important, but the order that we do those exercises in actually allows you to put in the effort required for it. So I'm going to pull up here how we want to structure our gym sessions. So we're going to go through almost a little tube, but essentially when we go through our gym sessions, there's a few things that we want to try to make sure that we achieve as we put the exercises on the sheet. So first of all, we want to make sure that we're going from complex exercises through to simple exercises. Now, what this means, this word complex can mean a few different things. It can mean how like literally difficult it is to coordinate the movement. It can mean how necessarily you want to well, let me actually plug this in. So we're having a few dramas as we work out the streaming setup. It is all in learning. One day I will be a pro at this. So yeah, essentially how complex our session is can come back to necessarily like how difficult the exercise is to coordinate. Power movements are going to be more complex because you need to actually like potentially get off the ground or exhibit that exercise really, really quickly and all that kind of stuff. Whereas a simple movement is obviously just something that doesn't have all of those elements. So when we go to the most simple things in the gym, they're going to be like our isolation movements, so single joints. That might be like a calf raise, or it might be like a bicep curl, or it might be like a tricep extension. It's going to be those things that don't use very many joints and don't have that many things to think about as you go through. So when we start off structuring a session, we want to start with the more complex stuff and we want to finish with the more simple stuff. Now, there's a whole bunch of reasons that we might want to do this, and I want to make sure to just say that like this is reduced injury risk. Yeah. This is important for things like our quality of execution. It's going to be also important just so that we can make sure that throughout our session we're actually doing things, we're actually more productive. So more productive in terms of adaptation. Drag that out. I am done. Why won't you let me drag it out? Maybe because that's it. So if we go here, we have increased quality of execution, and more productive adaptation. Yeah. Just think about it. If you go through your session and the first 4 exercises are a leg extension, a hamstring curl, a leg press, and a hack squat, if you then go to try to do front squats after that, then you are more likely to have all of these things go against you, right? You're more likely to potentially muck up your form and hurt something. You're more likely to just not get very much out of it. You're less likely to be able to lift more weight, and we know that weight is going to be a key thing that's going to help us adapt here. So really important that we're looking at going from complex to simple throughout our session. The next thing that we want to look at is going fast to slow. So fast things go first, and then slower things go later. Okay, so this goes in line with our complex to simple in terms of obviously things that are faster are generally a little bit more complex, but this is isolating the idea of like our neural adaptation, because you can have simple things that do move fast, right? Like let's say that you're in like your hack squat and you're trying to be more powerful. That should probably go earlier than a leg press where you're going to be really slow. Even a little bit more like dynamic than that, you might have something with like jammer arms where you're like trying to like push them out and punch as quickly as you can. That should go earlier in your session. And the reason that it needs to go earlier in your session is because your neural fatigue is just going to go up as you go throughout the session. So if we look at neural fatigue, we might have a table like this. And then we have 2 axes. Yeah. So we have things that we've done, or like drive. And then we have fatigue. And essentially, the more neural drive that you get throughout the session in arbitrary units, we can talk about it in terms of just like amount of efforts, yeah, or amount of seconds putting in effort. The more neural fatigue that you're going to get, right? Now, at the same time as that, we're also going to be able to see the amount of drive that you're going to be able to create go down. Yeah. So as your fatigue goes up, the amount of neural drive that you're able to create goes down. So it's really, really important that as we go through this, that we are putting those faster things earlier, because then we are able to do them better. Therefore, we are able to get more output out of them. And the last factor that I want you to think about here is just the importance of the exercise. Okay. So if you look at those 2 things of just, if you look at those 2 areas just in terms of, okay, we go from complex to simple, we go from fast to slow, then that will give you pretty good structure. But somebody might then turn around and say, and it's a valid argument, that they have this such and such goal. So therefore, shouldn't that thing go earlier? And that is 1000% correct. So let's say that you've got a program with a couple of jumps at the start, then you're going a couple power movements, then you go into your strength work. And at the end of your strength work, the most logical stuff to put there would be like your machine-based movements and your single joint movements because of this. Yeah, because they are the most simple, not necessarily fast at all. So if we're going to put a single joint movement at the end, then that makes sense with these 2 rules. But the difference is that if you have a specific focus on your calf development, maybe because you've got rehab or something like that, or you've got specific focus on your biceps because your number 1 goal is just to have huge biceps by the end of 2026, then that means that something can move up higher than what it would otherwise. The important thing to think about when it comes to the importance conversation is that you need to decide what level of importance something has to you. And if you decide that having the biggest biceps in the world is the most important goal for you right now, then it makes sense that should go first. And you should probably have 2 or 3 of those exercises in your program. It's the same way that you decide on what exercises you do. if you want to be super powerful, then maybe you should have a few more power movements than somebody who doesn't really care about that. But it's really, really important to understand that as we go through this, that importance just moves things up and down the line. So if we put together a session outline here, so we might have A1, A2, we might have B1, B2, and then let's just go C, 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 doesn't really matter, yeah? So we might have a general session structure like that, yeah? That's a pretty good full body template. Let's put together a few exercises. So if we go here, we might go squats. I'm actually going to put the size of this down a little bit. Cool. All right. So we might have squats. Let's go here. 5. All right. Then we might have our DB bench press. Both of these are obviously free weight movements that are quite complex, quite fast. Let's take our bicep curls. I'm just chucking things in for the sake of it at the moment. So bicep curls, a single joint movement, doesn't have many degrees of freedom, pretty straightforward. We might go a leg press. We might go a leg extension. Let's go here. 1, 2. And then we might go something like a calf raise. I need one more. Yeah. And then let's go tricep. Tricep extension is going to be the exact same. What else don't we have? Maybe we go like a sit-up. That's not how you spell sit-up. Cool. So here are our exercises. When we look at structuring them, okay, ideally what we'd want to do, as we just spoke about, is we want to look at getting these things here in an order that is going to give us the most structure so that we can lift the most, essentially, get the most benefit out of it. So squats and DB bench, as I said, they are our two most complex exercises. Fast and slow, we're not going to worry about for this section here. Then leg press, while it's in a machine and you have a fixed path, where complex comes back to as well is necessarily like how big the muscles might be. So maybe we can list it as a separate big to small. And that just refers to the size of the muscles that we're recruiting. So when it comes to our exercises, the bigger the muscle group, the more neural drive that it's going to need, the more actual energy that it's going to need as well, like literal carbohydrates, the more energy that it's going to need to actually push through the movement as well. So that's going to make it harder as we go through. We might then look at that, and then with B2, when it comes to structuring this, I might put something that's a little bit easier with that now that I've only got these exercises. Yeah, so looking at this, maybe we go a sit-up. Now, the reason that I would put a sit-up along with our leg press is because it's an opposite, or it's a different muscle group. So after we finish doing our leg press, we can go on to sit-ups, and neither of these exercises are going to be affected by each other. The sit-ups shouldn't really be affected by the leg press. The leg press shouldn't really be affected by the sit-up. What we're doing here, so I actually didn't point that out earlier, so I'll point it out now. What B1 and B2 and A1 and A2 mean is They are supersets. So for those who don't know what a superset is, it is just when we do two exercises alternating. So if we have three sets of squats and three sets of bench press, then having squats and bench press together means that we do a set of squats, then we go to a set of bench press, then we go back to a set of squats, then we go back to a set of bench press, back to a set of squats, back to a set of bench press. So that's what that's going to look like. The reason that we want to do this for most beginner sessions, even as you get along, you can keep on doing it with your sessions, is because it gives us a bigger output in less time. Because I don't necessarily need to rest my legs for 3 minutes before I go into a DB bench press, where I might need to rest my legs for 3 minutes in between two squat sets, then I'm able to go on and continue being productive. So we have our supersets here. So far we've got our squats and our DB bench press. They're our two most complex movements. I'm pretty comfortable doing that off the bat though. Maybe if you've got a really big squat focus, maybe you move this away. Maybe you even leave squats on their own at the start. But for today, we're going to look at squats and DB bench press together. Next up, we've got our leg press and our sit-up. So our leg press is obviously really big muscles we spoke about. Big goes before small because it's going to require more energy, more neural drive. I'm going to pair that up with our sit-up because that's going to give it something that isn't that isn't the same muscle group, but we can pair it up and save a little bit of time there. Then with C, I don't really care what order you do these. If you go into leg extension first, I need to change this. If we go into leg extension first, and then we go bicep curls, and then we go calf raise, that's fine. Yeah, we can swap up the order. You can do these ones separately, or you can do them together as a circuit. The reason you're actually able to do them together as a circuit without too much effect is because of the fact that they're different muscle groups. Now, I'm not saying there's going to be zero effect, right? Because if you do a really heavy set of leg extensions, anybody who has actually done that before knows that by the end of it, you don't feel super strong, right? You don't feel great. You're going to take a little bit of time to recover. But if you're trying to save some time, doing leg extensions into bicep curls, into calf raises can be a really productive strategy because it allows us to actually rest our legs during this period here and continue to rest our quads during this period here. So that by the time that we get back to leg extension, instead of only having like a 2 or 3 minute break, we might have had like a 4 or 5 minute break while having done other things in the middle. So really important to think about how you might potentially use those things together. The next thing that we're going to try and structure is going to be something that allows for a bit more power. So I'm going to put in P, 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 and then I'm going to steal this again. Copy, paste, and then we're going to get rid of leg extension. So when we go through here, as we said before, our complex exercises go first. This person here, I'm going to write it down so that we can keep track. This person here is going to be an athlete, let's say a basketball athlete, but it doesn't really matter too much. We're talking really generic programs at the moment anyway. They're going to be a basketball athlete with the goal of bigger, stronger calves. This could be for whatever reason, right? It could just be an aesthetic thing. They want bigger calves. It could be a rehab reason. Maybe they've had Achilles issues. Maybe they've had calf issues in the past. This is going to be our opportunity to actually work through and have a bit more of a focus on a specific muscle. So as we go through, click here, there. Our power exercises go first. Power can fit into a few different things. So it could be our jumps. We could have a broad, or maybe for a basketball athlete, we'll have a vertical jump. We'll have a vertical repeat hop. So they're just on their 1 foot. They're trying to hop up as high as they can. And they might have, let's actually put in sets and reps here. 3x 4 each side. So they will do 4 hops, 1, 2, 3, 4, one after the other. So that works on how well we can rebound. It works on just our ability to project ourselves vertically. It works on a few different things. That can go number one. We want to do that early because that's going to be hard to coordinate, right? We want to be able to land and reapply really, really well. We might need to actually coordinate our off leg and our arm so that we can get a bit more height as well. Really, really important that we put that earlier so that we can get more benefit out of it. Our next exercise, we might go now. So we might go something that's a little bit more locomotive. So we might go like a sled sprint. That's gone really slim. We might go sled sprint, and we might go 2 by 1 for the length of whatever the turf is. Maybe you've got a 10-meter turf. So sled sprint, again, super powerful. We need to coordinate a bunch. It should go early. It is also part of their goals. They want to be able to be more powerful. Now, power might not just be those kinds of things. Power might also be something like a clean and jerk. For anybody that's done any sort of Olympic lifting, it can be quite technical. It can take a lot of coordination. It takes a lot of thinking, right? We might have 4 by 1 for clean and jerks. Maybe 2, because we're assuming they're a little bit more beginner. So clean and jerk, while it's still a barbell movement, it's still going to go really early up with this power stuff. Because it requires a lot of recruitment at the same time. It requires a lot of power. Now, as we get into our first couple exercises, what are our goals? Stronger calves, be more powerful. We can take the same 7 exercises from here and just switch up the order a little bit to make sure that we're actually meeting those criteria. So we might go squats still first because we want that most complex movement there. But we might go our calf raises right along with it. We might go, because calf raises are a really big goal, 3 by 12. And then before I put that there, we might keep like 4 by, let's say 8. So we put that there. So now number 1 goal is right up the top, but along with something that's more complex and is going to be harder to complete. Then from there, we need to continue to address these goals. So leg press still might go at B1. Leg press, because leg press is really important for someone, or lower body strength is going to be really important for somebody that is completing, that is playing sport. So leg press. This though, we might just go 2 by 10. We've already got our main strength movement out of the way. We just want to push a little bit more. 2 by 10 is probably going to be enough if you push really, really heavy. So we might say that they're going to an RPE 10. If you don't know what an RPE is, or maybe not 10 though, maybe 9. If you don't know what an RPE is, then it's just a rate of perceived exertion. A 9 RPE with any of my clients just means, when I tell them this, that I want them to push one away from failure. And then along with that, we might still put our sit up there. The reason we want our sit up there is for the same reason as before, where we're trying to save a little bit of time. We think that we can do it in between, but it's not going to take away from that leg press. So sit up, and then sit up, we might still want a bit of abs, so we go 3 by 10. Sick. All right, now we still have remaining our DB bench press. DB bench press. Let's say 2 to 3 by 12 for this. More reps, get some big arms. We might go bicep curls. Now this is still appropriate because our DB bench press uses opposite muscles to where the bicep is. Yeah, so it uses a lot more tricep, uses a lot more chest. So it still probably won't affect each other too much. Here we might go again 2 to 3 by, we might go 12 to 15. So they can pick a rep range that they like, or just push until they can't really push anymore. And then we only had our leg extension left over. Now, if let's go 2 by 12 for a similar reason as what we said with the leg extension. Now, if we have a goal of bigger and stronger calves, there's actually a real reality here where we might switch things for more calf work. We might switch the bicep curls for a bit more calf, if I can grab it. Is it going to let me move it? We might switch this for seated calf raises because that is the more important goal right now. We want to make sure as we go through that the exercises that we choose reflect those goals and the order that we choose reflects those goals. And if we don't think about our primary outcome that we want first, then we can't actually expect to achieve it and we can't predict what the outcome is going to be. So really, really important that as we go through there, we just select exercise based on that. And that's how that order might be affected. Now, if you have same athlete that has a really big goal of biceps, maybe this first lot of calf raises here turns into bicep curls. Yeah. At the end of the day, training is fun. Most basketball athletes aren't playing professionally, so we're assuming that this person is relatively just mediocre average, but they enjoy their basketball. We can move their bicep curls earlier, and it's not a big deal. If we're moving something like an isolation movement earlier, I probably would pair it up with something else, just because you are able to still complete this at a pretty decent level. So we may as well not take an entire exercise slot away from it. But it is really important that we go through that for these reasons earlier. Essentially, what I'm trying to say here and what we're depicting here is that if you use these rules, you go from complex to simple, you go from fast to slow, you go from big to small, you are going to have a pretty well-structured program, and it's probably going to get you a few more outcomes than if you went from slow to fast. If you started throwing these vertical repeat hops at the end of the session, because you're just going to get worse quality of vertical repeat hops after squats and after leg press. That's why having a finisher of box jumps is silly. And I see it all the time. I see it all the time in commercial gyms. I see it all the time in heaps of programs with people that present what they've done in the past to me with. A finisher of box jumps just means that you're going to get really bad box jumps, and you're probably not going to get the conditioning stimulus that you're looking for out of a finisher. So a better finisher is something that you're going to be able to complete from a fixed position potentially, or something that doesn't really give a lot of movement. You might do something like a bike or a rower or something like that if you want that more fixed position. You might, on the other hand, go something like a mountain climber or something like that if you don't really have machines available or something like that. But it's too complex to throw at the end to say that you're going to do a good job at it. Next thing, fast. Fast things go earlier. The more powerful it is, the earlier it goes, because the faster the recruitment that your brain needs to send to your muscles so that it can actually push as quickly as you want. Big to small. The bigger the muscle group, the earlier it goes, because it requires more energy. So if it's a throw up of whether you do your your leg extensions, let's say, so your quads, big muscle group, before your bicep curls, probably yeah. Yeah, and that probably structures your session a little bit more into lower before upper, because generally our lower body muscles are a little bit bigger. Although I wouldn't write that down on my rules here. I don't think that's a big enough factor, especially when you look at what the importance is. And importance is generally going to dictate whether lowers or uppers come first, and how you necessarily do them. Because generally, if you're a team sport athlete, even if you're an individual athlete that's focused on like covering distance, that lower body is going to come first. Whereas if you're a strength sport athlete, or you're just somebody that wants a bigger upper body, then that's where you're going to throw in that upper body first. The other reason that I wouldn't really include lowers before uppers or uppers before lowers or whatever is not only just goals, but also because sometimes you might split up those sessions entirely. You might not necessarily even have them on the same day. So these 3 rules here are general enough to where you should be able to apply them to any gym program that you have. Hopefully that makes sense. I can see that a couple of you are tuned in. I'm going to try and work out the chat. Is there any questions? Does anybody have any questions that's watching? I said earlier that I'm still working out OBS, so this is all new to me. Just trying to move stuff around. I found the chat, nothing there. That's pretty much all that I wanted to talk about today when it comes to structuring your gym sessions. I just wanted to give a really general overview as to how you can structure things a little bit better to go through. I think that if you follow these 3 rules, then generally sessions are going to be a little bit better. The other thing that we obviously spoke about was also using things like supersets, using things like circuits. There's 1,000,001 different tools and little strategies that you can use to change how your program looks overall, even down to just changing how many sets you have of different things. And if you do that, then generally you can make sessions a little bit more interesting and a little bit more productive. So if you have any questions at all, you don't need to drop them right now, but feel free to put them in the comments, reach out with a message through Instagram or email or wherever you want, even my website. And yeah, I'd be keen to chat and continue making videos. My goal is this year is to explain as many concepts as I can and do it in a way that explains it not only in a little bit more depth, but in a way that actually allows you to action things the way that you want to. It's all good and well for me to say that if you want a coach, then reach out to me, but not everybody wants a coach. Not everyone can use a coach. So let me know if you do want a coach, but otherwise I'm going to keep on rocking up as often as I can to give you the tools to train on your own. I will see you all later. Thank you guys very much for tuning in. If you're still on stream, then maybe click on one of my other lives that I've done recently or on one of my videos that have explained a few different topics. I'll see you all